Welcome back to The Manager, presented by Outlier Sports. I'm your host, Gianni Frangella. Today, we're going to be getting into the first week of action in the NBA. And oh, what a week it was! It was divine. Thank God basketball is back. God, I love it. We're going to go over some big moments that happened in this first week. Starting off, opening night, Thunder and the Rockets double overtime game. This one was a thriller, to say the least. Şengün looked amazing. Was hitting a lot of threes. Just really looked like he's kind of maybe leveled up as a player. To be honest with you, he looked really good. KD kind of looked a little off, and it just seemed like he wasn't himself. Was turning the ball over, wasn't super comfortable. I feel like Lou Dort was kind of getting to him with his defense. And then probably the thing that jarred me the most about Katie's night was calling a timeout that they didn't have and what should have been a technical foul on him at the end of the first overtime. They rebound the ball. And he tries to call a timeout with like a couple seconds left. And it should have been, because they didn't have one left, that should have been acknowledged as him trying to call a timeout, and therefore a technical foul, which would have given the Thunder a free throw and would have won them the game. Instead, the refs just didn't acknowledge it as him trying to call a timeout, and Houston kind of got away with one there. Ultimately, they lost. They couldn't outlast OKC in double OT. SGA closed the game phenomenally, hit a super clutch shot, was really struggling before the fourth quarter, really turned it on in the fourth, did good in OT. That's MVP stuff by him, man. Gotta give credit where it's due. That was a huge, heroic close to that game. Let's talk about Victor Wembanyama. Oh my gosh, has he gotten off to a hot start? The Spurs are not only 3-0, but he started opening night off with a 40 ball, 15 rebounds, and just eviscerated Anthony Davis and beat the Mavs by about 20. And when you really think about it, what team is better equipped size-wise, defense-wise, length-wise to guard Wembanyama than the Dallas Mavericks? I can't think of one. In theory, it should be them, and yet he hung up 40 and 15 on them and just looked monstrous. Through 3 games, it was only 3 games, he has been averaging 33 points per game, 13 rebounds per game, six blocks per game on 64% true shooting percentage. Absolutely monstrous numbers. And through 1 week, I have to preface this, through 1 week, through 3 games, because it is a bold statement to make this early on, but through this very, very early point in the season, there has not been anybody better than him. He is the best in the world at this very moment. He's been better than SGA, in my opinion. He's undeniably been better than Jokic, who's been kind of disappointing, and I'll talk about later. He's been the best player in the world. The only guy I think who has maybe an argument over him right now is Giannis, and I still think he's been better than Giannis. He is just redefining what we think, what we can expect or what can be viewed as possible from an NBA player or maybe athletes in general. It is just freakish to be able to watch a guy have 2 improbable blocks back to back on one side of the floor and then pull up and hit a 3 from the logo on the other side all in one sequence. It is video game like. It is, and frankly, you could try and make Wemby in a video game, you still could not make him the way that he actually is in real life. It's unbelievable. Wemby, man, he's here. It might be over. He's here, and the Spurs are winning. So I don't know, man. I think everybody thought we had a little bit more time. I think time might be up. I think Wemby is here. Is he already the best in the world? It's a little early to say. He's playing like the best in the world right now. Nobody's been better than him through 1 week, through 2 to 3 games. That's a very early, small sample size, but it's true that nobody's been better than him. Aaron Gordon, 50 piece, and Steph Curry with 42 in the W to spoil AG's 50 piece. We got to give a round of applause for Aaron Gordon's shooting development because, and I can tell you this confidently as a Nuggets fan, about 2 seasons ago, I would wince every time he took a three, even if he was wide open. I would just pray. And last year, he took a huge leap. And it's just unbelievable to see a guy who was not just a non-shooter, but a bad shooter. Like a guy who wasn't even good at the free throw line. And is if you would have told me 2 years ago Aaron Gordon would have ever gone 10 of 11 from three in a game, I simply would not believe you. I would think you are high on the strongest of drugs. Drugs that the CIA does not even have knowledge of to this point. You've discovered something entirely new to be making a prediction like that. I never would have guessed he'd be able to put up 50 in a game either. So that was incredible. It was incredible to watch, and it was equally incredible to watch as it was disappointing that we lost that game. I was gut wrenched that we wasted an Aaron Gordon 50 ball. Um, I mean, and really, I think there's one person to blame for that loss, and it was Jokic. He looked like shit. He looked just kind of overweight and not in the best condition. And a great example of that that demonstrates, that he wasn't in great condition, that he didn't have as much energy as he usually does, is he took 13 threes, the second most he's ever taken in a game in his career. He did not look like himself. He didn't want to go to the basket. He didn't want to work in the paint against a rather small team. The only actual guy of his size on that team was Al Horford, who's 39 years old. It was frankly inexcusable performance for him. For Murray to look good, even though Jamal took some dumb shots down the stretch, for Murray to look good, for the bench to look good, but more importantly, for Aaron Gordon to have 50 points and for you to not be able to string together, at least a few shots down the stretch that weren't just chucking up threes. And the thing was, shooting 13 threes is one thing. You were not making them. You went from like 2 of 7 to 2 of 9 to 2 of 11, 2 of 13. Like you just were not making them, and you would not stop trying to shoot them. And that's unacceptable from him. You know, to waste an incredible game from AG like that, but really just I don't want him taking 13 threes ever. You know, unless he's already made about 6 or 7. Like you cannot just jack up threes like that. And especially if it's not working out for you. You got to play your game, get in the paint, work for your shots, be the guy that everyone knows is the best player in the world. Because right now you are far from it. So super disappointing to see him waste that game, or for us to waste an Aaron Gordon 50 ball. Just so disappointing. Cam Johnson looked like shit that game too. See, Christian Brown did not look good either. But I'll give Cam Johnson a pass because it's your first game with a new team. I'm not going to expect you to have everything down right away. And frankly, I feel like we could be doing more for him to be integrated with the offense. Run a play or two for him. You can't expect this guy that you traded for, that you want to be a bigger piece, to just come on and know how to blend with your offense seamlessly. You need to get him involved. Christian Brown didn't look good. He looked good in the next game, as did Cam Johnson. Jokic, he looked a little better, but still not really where you need him to be. I'm glad that he's got all these people to pass to now, but at some point you need Nikola Jokic to actually look like Nikola Jokic. Luka with 49, 11, and 8 against the Timberwolves. Very impressive game. You know what's a little bit more impressive than that? 51, 11, and 9 from Austin Reeves against the Sacramento Kings last night. Very impressive performance. And honestly, one of those where you're like, maybe probably the same way a lot of people probably felt about Aaron Gordon, was like, who had 50 points. Austin Reeves. I mean, I would say I think he's capable of that. I would never guess that he would have it unless Luka and LeBron were out, which they both were. Speaking of Luka, he's going to be out at least a week. Hurt his finger with Jaden McDaniels. Um, I think they said he's going to be reevaluated in a week. Another person who's facing injuries, Anthony Edwards, is out at least 2 weeks with a hamstring injury. And the Wolves have never really, at least in their time of success, they've never really gone like a prolonged period without Ant. He's been a very durable player. So this will be a test for them. Um, and we'll see how they do, how they fare in his absence. Honorable mention of a storyline. How about VJ Edgecombe? I said in my season preview, I said I picked Cooper Flag for Rookie of the Year, but I also said watch out for VJ Edgecombe because he is nasty. He is driven. He's a dog, and I see a little bit of a young Dwayne Wade in him. I really do. Um, so I I'm hyped about him. I'm a fan of his, and I'm hyped to see where he goes from that. But 34 on the opening night, most points by a rookie in their debut since Wilt Chamberlain. Really impressive stuff. Hyped for VJ Edgecombe. Something else I want to get into here. A trend that's been going on through this very short first week. Today is 7 days since the season started. But this comes from Adam Maris of DNVR and All City Sports. He does great work. This comes from his Twitter, or his X account, I should say. There were 67 instances where a player took 15 free throw attempts or more in a single game last season. There have already been 11 so far this year, including 4 on Sunday night alone. I have the list of all the people who have had this so far. We got SGA with 26 free throw attempts against the Pacers. That was a double overtime game. Reeves with 22 in his 51 ball. Luka with 19 in his 48 game. KD with 18. Mathurin with 17. Giannis with 16. Zion with 16. Butler with 16. Wemby, Devin Booker, and Jaylen Brown with 15. Speaking of Jaylen Brown, did you guys see his hairline or hairspray or coloring, whatever it was, wipe off on OG Anunoby's jersey? Yikes, man. That is a rough start for the Celtics. 0-3 start for them. But with these free throws, so that stat in itself speaks a lot. Because I think everyone last year already felt like there were too many free throws. We called too many foul calls. There's too much of that. And there were 67 instances where that happened last year, where there was 15 or more attempts by a player. You already have 11 so far. That you are on pace to smoke that number. And the thing is, this just isn't what NBA fans want. You talk about a product, building a good product for the fans. That should be the number one focus of the NBA. That doesn't mean you should interfere with the product. However, I think it should be made a point to these refs like, hey, we're calling way too many fouls. We should not have several teams shooting 40 free throws a night. That's just unacceptable. That's not what fans want to see. And it waters down this product that we love so much. It slows the game down. We don't see enough actual basketball in the half court offense or fast break offense. All we see is guys at the free throw line. Like everyone makes a joke about with SGA, they're like, you'll never believe what I just turned the game on to, or what I see when I turn the game on. But that's happening with everybody so far this year. SGA more than anyone because he's leading the league in free throw attempts right now. But that's happening with everybody. We are seeing way too many foul calls. And I think a bigger point and a bigger issue with this is when you calling regular season games like this is malpractice because you don't call the playoffs like this. And we saw it last year where some teams got really hit by the difference in the free throw attempts and the foul calls where, there are so many calls in the regular season and then they really rough it out. They really let you play this rugged style of basketball in the playoffs. And that's just way too inconsistent. That's way too big of a gap between what is being called in the regular season and what is called in the playoffs, to where you can't, I don't know how you can expect players to just play all year, walking on eggshells, and then be ready to play prison ball in the playoffs. These are hyperboles, but I'm trying to illustrate the point that these are two completely different brands, like styles, two different games of basketball when you call it this differently. And so now that we're seeing even more foul calls, even more free throw attempts, I worry about what the playoffs are going to look like, about how players are going to be able to adjust. So the NBA needs to get a hold of this, and they need to stop this before it gets out of control with these foul calls. Um, and the face of free throw attempts and unwarranted foul calls, if you will, is, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, the face of this issue has undeniably become Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And is he getting too much hate for his free throw attempts? I think, let's look at it this way. Does he deserve every single one of those free throws? Probably not. Does every player deserve every free throw that they get? No. Sometimes there's bad calls. Sometimes there's flopping. And I want to make a clear distinction. There's a clear distinction between foul baiting and flopping. Because I'm a Nuggets fan. I'm not the biggest fan of the Thunder, but I will say this. SGA got a lot of hate for the shot that ultimately won them the game, or the shot attempt he took that ultimately won them the game against the Rockets, because he baited Kevin Durant into a foul. Some people said that wasn't even a foul. That is a foul clear as day. And not only that, the foul that KD committed, that SGA baited him into, that is like a rookie mistake, to leave his feet so emphatically, to not keep your feet down. And, that's the thing that they teach you in high school basketball, even, is to not leave your feet, because guys can just, not necessarily jump into you, but like you're falling into them. You're losing your stability to guard the play. And when, in KD's instance, he left his feet and went right into SGA, that's a foul clear as day. And to me, that's smart by SGA. But I think there's a clear difference between foul baiting and flopping. And I don't really think SGA is like a serial flopper. I think he flops probably just about as much as anyone does. There's embellishment and then there's flopping. There's a difference between that as well. Now, I think where some people get upset, and I do kind of agree with this, I think there's times where SGA, in all of his skill, all of his abilities, as arguably the best player in the league, probably the best scorer in the league, in all of that talent and abilities that he has, there are times where he's so clearly not even trying to actually score the basketball, but just get free throws, just to get a foul call. And the same has been said about Joel Embiid, and I think it was true in both instances. However, we're starting to see now where SGA's gotten a lot of flack for the amount of free throws he's taken through their first two games. I didn't see what his free throw attempts were in the third game, but he's still leading the league in free throw attempts. And now people are trying to look at all of these other games that I mentioned: Reeves with 22, Luka with 19, KD with 18. I've seen all of these games be held, kind of pulled up on Twitter, people making tweets saying, okay, so it's okay when they do it. They're not getting, there's no outrage in this instance. People are not upset about this instance, but they're upset when SGA does it. What does this say? I've seen some people insinuate or even directly state the narrative that, well, SGA only has this narrative around him because he's black. Why is this not being said about Austin Reeves getting 22 free throws, or Luka getting 19 free throws? Why don't people call Luka or Jokic a flopper? Personally, as a Nuggets fan, I feel like I see plenty of people call Jokic a flopper. I'll say this. I don't think it's a racial thing. But I think some players, when you're towards the top of the league in free throw attempts, you gain that narrative. Embiid had that same thing. SGA had that same thing. There were times where Giannis got 13 free throws a game or 11 free throws a game, but I don't think he ever really had that narrative. And it was because you watched the games, you saw he was not flopping for that. He was not embellishing foul calls. He was not baiting people in the calls. He was simply playing his brand of basketball, which is, barreling through people or trying to barrel his way to the basket. And he drew a lot of foul calls. I never really saw that narrative with him, and I think that was just because of his style of basketball. I think with SGA, I think with Joel Embiid, the narratives were attached to them because of their style of basketball. I don't personally see it as a racial thing, but that's just from where I stand. And you look at the highlights of that Austin Reeves 51 ball. He wasn't really flopping or fouling for stuff. He was going to the basket or getting like just playing his game, and he was getting fouled. Some of them were hard fouls. Luka, I'll grant you, I haven't seen all of the highlights of his game of the 49 point game that he had with 19 free throws, but I will say Luka is kind of a flopper. I'll admit Jokic is a flopper. Why they don't have as big of a narratives around that, I would say, is probably a little bit because of free throw attempts. I mean, Jokic, the most he's ever gotten is like 6 free throw attempts per game. He's not a big high volume free throw kind of guy, and maybe that's why he doesn't have that narrative around him. I also think he was more of an embellisher up until the playoffs last year, where he just kind of became a serial flopper, and I hate it. I hate flopping. I hated when Jokic did it. I hate when SGA does it. I hate when anybody does it. I cannot stand it. It is my least favorite part of the NBA today. Is when people flop, and I think it it baits these referees into making bad calls. And that's what I think a lot of people would agree with is the officiating in today's game is probably the biggest issue in the actual product of the game. Um, if you say it's people jack up too many threes, then you're probably over the age of 35 or 40. Like you're probably just an older fan. But in general, I think we can all agree the officiating is not where it should be. And I think a big reason because of that is because of the pressure that these players are constantly putting on the referees to make a call because I fell, because I yelled, because I embellished or I threw my head back. Um, and so I think that flopping is a big issue, but there's a difference the difference between that and foul baiting. Now, the next part of this discussion is foul baiting. There's a certain narrative around it of whether it kind of falls into unethical hoops, as we'll call it. This is just the narrative. I'm not giving my opinion one way or another. I think there's a fine line to whether or not I think it's ethical. I think what SGA did to win the game against the Rockets, I see that as a smart play because you had Kevin Durant dancing and you knew he was going to jump there. There's a difference between doing that and not even looking to shoot the shot whatsoever. Um, and not even like I'm just going to try and draw a foul here. And if I don't get it, then I'm just going to complain or, like whine. Like that's unethical in my opinion. I think there's a difference between doing that and doing it at times where it's simply a smart play. Um, and I think SGA has examples of both. But the thing is sometimes even doing it when it's considered unethical is smart just because you're getting points. You know, you don't care how you get it, you're just getting it. To me, I find that to be unethical hoops. It doesn't matter. It's really all just a dumb discussion or narrative that we all want to have. But hooping is hooping nonetheless. Winning is winning. All like these little narratives and conversations we like to have about it. It's fun. It's whatever. It's part of the game, but it doesn't actually mean anything. It doesn't speak less of a player. But I will say this about SGA getting too much hate for the free throw attempts. when you choose to play that brand of basketball, I don't think you can really be surprised or upset when people don't like it or don't enjoy watching it. People are going to have their opinions about it. And I don't think SGA cares, but you see so many of these fans get so upset and get so riled up that there's not the same perception towards other players. Well, I don't think SGA is getting this reputation just because of these first few games of the year. I think he's been known for this style of basketball. Um, at times it's maybe been unwarranted, but at times it's also like, well, we're not making, this isn't being made up. People aren't just making up this narrative out of thin air. He does shoot a lot of free throws. Um, and you know, sometimes it's warranted. Like he is a guy who shoots the ball a lot, so you're going to get fouled. It's not to say that all of them aren't worthy, but sometimes, maybe the refs are helping him out a little bit on a couple of calls, as they do a lot of people, a lot of players. Um, I will say there was one highlight in particular against the Pacers where I saw him do his little nudge off that he likes to do. He didn't really get the space that he wanted. And so he does it again. And when in doing so, he takes like 5 steps when he picks up the ball, and it wasn't called. And the only reason I bring up this play in particular is I saw several outlets, including fans, Thunder fans, whatever, be like, look at this impressive play, like shout, like kind of applauding the play. And it's just funny to me because it was such a clear travel. But that's really a small thing I'm harping on, just this one play. Do I think SGA gets too much hate for the free throw attempts? Maybe so. Should there be a little bit more flack on other players? Maybe so. But at the end of the day, these narratives aren't being built out of nowhere. There's a history to them. And that's why there's maybe not the narrative isn't being placed on these guys, Reeves, Luka, KD, who have gotten a lot of free throws so far this year. The one thing I will say, there's not one repeat player on this list. So there's not one guy who's like, oh, he's getting a criminal amount of free throws. And so SGA, yeah, he's only had one game over 15 attempts. And so maybe it is being played out a little bit. He's still leading the league in free throw attempts, but someone has to. So, you know, food for thought. Um, One other thing I wanted to get into is the Jokic PR through this part of the season. It is a little much. I will admit, it is a little glazing, if you will. Um, I don't think he looks like himself. I don't think he's worthy of the praise that he's gotten from some national media outlets. There was an ESPN graphic. It was showcasing Thursday night stat lines, and it was Steph dropping 42, SGA dropping 55, and then Jokic with 21, 13, and 10. And that was outrageous to me, not only because Aaron Gordon had 50 points, um, but because Jokic lost us that game. And if you actually watch that game, he looked horrible. He was 8 of 23, 2 of 13 from 3. He just didn't look good, and he missed a potential game winner. Like, checked all of the boxes of should have gotten flack for the game. But instead, because his stat line was a triple-double, he was getting credit for it. Same thing against the Suns. Oh, he had 14, 14, and 15. He didn't take a shot until the second half. He does not. I'm unhappy with his attitude and his conditioning to start the year. And this probably sounds like I'm hating, but I mean, I'm saying this as a Nuggets fan. Like, I'm being critical because I'm a fan, and I know he's better than this. He is not worthy of the praise he's been getting from a big outlet. Um, and you know, the one thing I will say though is I have been seeing a lot of people say, "Oh, if Jokic did this pass, if Jokic made this pass, it would be everywhere." He has made that pass. There was one pass I saw that I've never like of all the tweets I've seen of where if people say if Jokic make this pass, and 90% of them are Bucks fans or a pass that's Giannis is doing. It's not to diminish the pass, but I've seen Jokic do that pass. The one pass I saw him do that I haven't seen him, I haven't seen Jokic do, or he's probably incapable of doing, was Giannis goes up for a layup and then does he's back facing the corner and does it behind his back like this. Super awesome pass, super impressive pass. Put it on the big outlets, put it on Sports Center, put it out there. I think it's worthy of that praise. However, Jokic has done all of the other passes, and he does it probably multiple times a game. Some of those passes other people do multiple times a game. But the thing is, I genuinely, in my own experience, and I follow a lot of Nuggets accounts. I'm following like Nuggets Twitter feed of highlights, Nuggets players, all of these things. I see more tweets saying of like Giannis highlight passes, um, saying if Jokic did this, then I see tweets of actual Jokic highlights of him passing the ball. He makes a lot of great passes. I don't know what to tell you. Does Giannis average 10 assists per game? No. And that's why the label probably isn't as big about Giannis being a passer. I see people say stuff like, man, if like Giannis could totally be as good of a passer if he wanted to. Giannis could totally average 10 assists if he had the players around him. He had Damian Lillard around him. He had some really good scores around him. He did not average that. Giannis has a different brand of basketball. I love Giannis. Personally, I think Giannis is the second best player in the league over SGA. And I'm still holding Jokic first. I have said, yes, Wemby's the best player in the league through this first week. That's 1 week. I'm going to hold off before I really let that affect my, in the long run, my bigger picture rankings. I think it's Jokic, Giannis, SGA. I have so much respect for Giannis, an immense amount of respect for Giannis. He is not as good of a passer as Jokic. There's not a scenario where he is. That's just not what it is. He's a million times better of a defender, of a finisher than Jokic. They have their strengths over each other. Passing is Jokic's over Giannis. Giannis is still a good passer, can still make really good passes, but it's not what Jokic can do. That's just, that is what it is. But nonetheless, yeah, he's having way too much. I agree, he's having a little bit too much praise, but also that's coming from these major sports outlets. Newsflash: ESPN doesn't offer ethical analysis and breakdown of games. They push agendas. They peddle agendas. That is how they make their money. That is what they do. It is, I don't know what to tell you other than look for praise and look for coverage from places other than just ESPN. Speaking of what ESPN fails and lacks in basketball analysis, some thoughts on NBC and Prime coverage so far. I love it. I am loving both of them. It's been refreshing commentary and presentation from both of them. NBC, Mike Tirico is awesome. Noah Eagle is awesome. They're calling games much better than most games at ESPN. And I do love Tim Legler being with Mike Breen. That is, I think, the better move. No shade to Doris Burke, but Tim Legler's just better at it. And Tim Legler is ESPN's doing this thing now where they have a coach's corner with Tim Legler, where he sits down with the coach and they break down some of their plays. That is awesome. ESPN leaning into Tim Legler is one of the best things they could do for the basketball department right now, because he's one of the few actual good basketball minds they have in that department. Prime studio coverage blows ESPN out of the water. Like having Udonis Haslem break down a play on the LED court, that was awesome. That was a type of analysis he never got to do at ESPN. They would just, that's my issue with ESPN. Is they get these former athletes and they just use them as people with opinions. They don't ask them things about these plays, about what defense they're running, what offense they're running. They don't actually use their player perspective whatsoever. They're literally just using them as people with opinions. And that's where they go wrong. And that's how they use Udonis Haslem. And then in Prime, with Prime Studio, he gets to actually be an analyst to break down these plays to show his basketball knowledge. That was super refreshing. Love Prime coverage so far. I love NBC coverage. Um, Inside the NBA is on ESPN. It's fun, but it is bad for the NBA. It is bad for the league. And I'll tell you why. Everybody loves Shaq, Kenny, Ernie, and Chuck. We love this coverage. We love all that. It reminds us of our childhood. But the reason it is now bad for the league is because there's way too much negativity. And frankly, they're well uninformed. Shaq said, I can't know every coach. You should know every coach. And then he said, there's 27 teams. He thought there was 27 teams. And whether or not it was a joke, whether or not he does know there's 30 and he's just putting on an act, that is a bad look for the NBA. To have one of your one of your biggest media heads be saying things like this, it is a bad look. And not only that, but to after Wemby has 40 and 15, he gets on there and he's like, you know, plays him down. Again, mentions Bol about how a narrative that he's played since Wemby got in the league. Well, what can he do that Bol can't do? And the reason this is so bad is because Shaq was Bol's AAU coach. He's letting a personal bias affect the perception and the narrative around the future of the NBA. Like that's the NBA should be furious. The league office should be furious at this kind of coverage from Shaq because hey, when LeBron leaves, when Steph leaves, when KD leaves, and we have nothing left to market, even though we've already been holding on to marketing these guys for way too long, this guy, this is our future. This is what we have going for us. And you want to get up there and compare him to a guy who's currently not on a team. That's ridiculous. That's unacceptable. And and Shaq's not the only one. I mean, Charles has his moments. They're just not offering a good enough analysis. And I ultimately think people only like the show for its antics instead of actually having a real coverage. And that's the problem. There's way too many antics in the coverage today. It's the same thing like Stephen A. Smith. He gets clicks because of his antics, because of he gets up there and he's like, um, just says these outrageous takes of, you know, he's the best player in the league. He's not even as good as him. He's not as good as Michael Jordan, whatever, whatever. He's simply trying to gain clicks, antics, not analysis. That's the issue with today's NBA coverage. And NBC and Prime so far is a antithesis of that. And that's where I've been really, really delighted by their coverage so far. Um, that is all I got on the rundown. We are going to go over the games that we got tonight. This is Monday, October 27th, 4:57 p.m. Tonight, we have Cavaliers and Pistons at 6 p.m. Central Time. I'm going to go over all these times in Central Time. I gave them an Eastern Time last time because I was on the East Coast. Hawks and Bulls in Chicago, 7 p.m. Central Time. Raptors in San Antonio. See if the Spurs can stay undefeated at 7 p.m. Central Time. Thunder at Dallas, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. That's going to be a good game. Then we got the Nuggets in Minnesota against the Wolves. I was very excited for this game. Less excited because Ant's not going to be playing. We still got to take care of business, but I was really excited to see how we matched up against him with this new team. That's going to be at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. See, I'm skipping some games here. 6 p.m. Central Time, Magic against the Sixers in Philly. 7 p.m. Central Time, Boston in New Orleans against the Pelicans. Brooklyn goes to Houston against the Rockets, 7 p.m. Central Time, two winless teams. So you can get a win there first. Phoenix goes up against Utah in Utah, 8 p.m. Central Time. Grizzlies travel to the Bay Area against the Warriors, 9 p.m. Central Time. And then the Trailblazers play the Lakers in LA, 9:30 p.m. Central Time. Got a good slate ahead of us. And already a quick couple of injuries to Luka and Ant, but hopefully it doesn't persist. Hopefully these free throws don't persist, hopefully we get the good brand of basketball that we all want, that we all look for. That is all for today's episode of The Manager, talking about the NBA. Going to have an NFL episode. I'm going to try and record it tomorrow. I'm going to try and have this up tonight. But I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you enjoyed listening, however you might have tuned in. This has been The Manager, presented by Outlier Sports. I was your host, Gianni Frangella, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.